Today I want to talk about my eating disorder because I'm suffering 6 years from anorexia, and I've never made it clear before on Instagram and YouTube, but today I want to explain how it feels like and what it is to have an eating disorder. I actually have been planning to make this video for a very long time because my eating disorder feels like a very important and long and difficult chapter in my life. So I actually planned to make this video, but I didn't do it yet because I was very careful with this, and it felt like it wasn't the time yet to make this video because my eating disorder felt like my image, and I was scared to tell people that I had an eating disorder on social media because I was afraid this will be my image and people will see me as the girl with an eating disorder, and I was sure if I did that, then it was making my eating disorder worse because my eating disorder was proud of having an eating disorder. And if I did make this video earlier then it felt like my eating disorder wanted to make this video, but now it feels like the time to make this video because I have another lifestyle now and I have a horse now. So it feels like I'm not making this video because of out of my eating disorder, but it feels like I'm making this video out of my healthy self. And that's why I think it's the time now to come out. I also want to give you a trigger warning because I think some of you may be sensitive for this kind of stuff and I don't want to hurt anyone. So if you're sensitive for this, for eating disorders, then please swipe away because then this is not for you, I think. But I also want to make sure, and I will also want to tell that I'm not going to share pictures, I'm also not calling numbers, and I'm not going to say what I did eat because I want to make clear that an eating disorder is not about your body, but an eating disorder is in your head, and it's all in your head. And I see people are sharing their eating disorder stories with a lot of thin images, like look how thin I was, but then it feels like people are watching it like oh, that girl was so thin, and they think it's impressive, but that's not what an eating disorder is about. It's not about your body, and I want to make that very clear, and I want to make clear what's going on inside your head and not what's going on inside your body, because an eating disorder is in your head. It's actually very difficult to tell you where my eating disorder did start, but I think most people think eating disorders start when they do stop with eating, but I think my eating disorder voice in my head started at age 14 and 15. I didn't stop eating yet, but the voice was starting to creep inside my head. I can remember. I also can remember the first time when I thought I was very fat. When I was 14 and 15 years old, I didn't go to school and I had a very difficult history with selective mutism, a social anxiety disorder, and I didn't go to school and I was very lonely. I was very lonely at home. And because of this I actually became a little bit depressed, and I felt very low about myself. I didn't like myself. I started to hate myself. But it's actually something that's really going on. When you're not loving yourself, then how can you love your own body? So when I was 14 and 15 years old, I started to watch myself in the mirror, and the only thing I saw was a terrible, fat and ugly person. I actually thought like I looked like a monster, and yeah, I actually thought like people didn't like me because I was that ugly and I wasn't worthy to be liked and to be loved, and yeah, 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 I actually felt like a terrible person, and it was actually all I saw in the mirror. And yeah, yeah, and I was looking to skinny girls and I saw they were popular and they were being loved. But I was that fat, ugly person that didn't deserve to be loved. So I actually thought like, yeah, I didn't love myself. But there was a time when I started thinking like, I have to stop eating because the only way how I can love myself is to be skinny, and when I'm getting skinny uh, then that's the only way how I can love myself. I actually have tried to ignore this feeling and I've tried to love myself into the mirror, but I kept hating myself and I kept hating the person I saw in the mirror. And when I'm 16 I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to stop eating because I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to love myself and I wanted to feel love to myself, and that was the only thing I actually wanted. So I started stopping with eating, and that's where that started. Yeah, my parents are actually very good, so they saw very quickly that I stopped eating. So that they wanted me to eat again, but I did this, but I slowly started to eat less again. And when I started to become thinner because I was losing weight, I actually felt very proud, and it was something I was good in, and I loved seeing myself becoming thinner. But there also was one thing: I was never thin enough. So I saw myself becoming thinner, but I still saw myself as the fat and ugly person, and I still didn't like myself, and the voice in my head still was screaming like, you have still to become thinner because you won't love yourself if you don't do that. So I was keeping eating less and less, but I saw myself as a fat ugly girl. I can remember that there were people saying to me that I was becoming too thin and they wanted to stop going on a diet, but I didn't agree with those people. I thought like, they're crazy because I'm still fat and I still have to lose weight. So I actually was did irritate about those people, and I was still going on with losing weight. I didn't know it was become sick. But when I was 17, I felt very weak, and also felt very anger all the time, and I wasn't myself anymore. I felt weak, and I felt so weak that I even hadn't the voice to speak anymore. But one day I started to see that I was becoming scared for food so much. Every time when we were going to eat, I was eating less and less. And I am actually a person that loves food, but on one day I was seeing that I was becoming so scared of food, that yeah, it felt like I was suffering, and I actually wanted to tell to my mom, but I was scared to do it because I knew when I told my mom that I'm scared for food, she will search for help, and I didn't want help, because if my mom is searching for help, then it will mean that I have to eat again, and that was something I didn't want. But when I was 17 years old, I was so scared of food that I've decided to tell my mom, and then my mom started to search for help. Well, a lot of people with eating disorder get the tip to search for help, but actually I don't think like that's a great solution, because I've been to multiple therapists for my eating disorder. I've also been to a clinic, but all of those therapists made my eating disorder much worse than it already was. And that has also a reason. The therapists that are specialists in eating disorders are focused on gaining weight and on food, but actually an eating disorder is in your head, and it's all created because of a trauma, because you don't feeling good. But eating disorder therapists aren't interested in that. They only want to see you gaining weight, and they want to make clear that becoming thin is very unhealthy. But actually, when you have an eating disorder and you suffer from anorexia, the only thing you want is becoming skinnier. And becoming skinnier feels like you're doing great, because of the trauma that's inside your head. So when eating disorder therapists are busy to make clear that you must gain weight and eat, and to make clear what's going on with your body when you become skinnier, you're only becoming more busy with your own body and with food. Actually, your body is the obsession you're busy with an eating disorder. And that's where they give attention to. I also can give example. I can remember the first time when I started to search help for my eating disorder. I started to get a diagnosis and I started to hear from the therapist that I had anorexia in my head, but my body wasn't skinny enough to have real anorexia. And when I started to hear it, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I have to lose weight because I have to be real anorexic, I have to be really skinny. So when those therapists were trying to help me to eat more, I was trying to get the real anorexia. I wanted to be really skinny, and that's not the only thing. Yeah, so I was becoming losing more weight until it was real. And when I started to have the real anorexic weight, I was very proud of it, and I liked when they started to become scared. I liked that they started to make clear that I wasn't doing good. I did like to see fear in their eyes. I started to like it actually, because it was the sign I was doing good enough. And that was all because they were giving my obsession attention, my body, but they weren't giving attention to the trauma in my head, why I didn't like myself, that they didn't give attention to it. Yeah, and because I have an obsession with my body, I like this attention, and it grew bigger. So actually, after getting help, my eating disorder was getting worse. Yeah, and because I also saw this because in the beginning I was very scared to become sick because of getting thinner. I knew when I was getting thinner I will become sick on one point because my body couldn't take it anymore. I was aware of that and I was very scared about that. But the therapist also made this clear, and they were putting this in my head that becoming skinnier also means becoming sick. And there also became a day that I started to like it, to feel weak and sick, because then it felt like I was doing great and I was doing my best in becoming skinnier. So becoming sick actually was a sign that I was becoming thinner, and then I wanted to become sick. It actually came that far, and yeah. And I also first started to lose weight to become more beautiful, but later I started to notice that I started to lose weight because it was my obsession, not to become more beautiful. There also became a reversed eating disorder language in my head where other people weren't aware of. When people started to warn me that I was becoming too skinny and it will be dangerous, then I was acting and playing like I was scared, like, yeah. But in fact, I did like it that they did warn me. In fact, it felt like it was a compliment. And when people started to become scared and they told me to not lose weight because I was too skinny, it felt like a compliment and I loved it. But also the reverse, when people told me that my body was becoming more healthy again and it was becoming more beautiful because I was gaining weight and I wasn't that sick skinny anymore, then I was very sad and I was becoming very angry, because in my eating disorder language it means like I was failing, and yeah, it felt like I was failing in eating and in becoming skinny. The only thing I wanted was becoming skinnier, and I didn't want to become fatter. And when people, and my eating disorder also did know, when people started to like my body because it wasn't that sick skinny anymore, then they would like it, and I was very aware of that. And so then I was becoming more scarier. So I actually preferred to hear people saying that I was going to die. Then I was very proud to hear that and I was very glad. But when people say I was beautiful, I I was becoming scared. So actually it was the reversed world actually. Yeah, my eating disorder was an obsession and I did do literally everything to lose weight. I had a step counter on my phone and I literally walked circles in my room for 3 hours every day for months long. Yeah, just circles in my room here, in this room, for 3 hours long to lose weight. Yeah, and I couldn't stop until I've reached my calorie goal. Yeah, but one time my hip was becoming to hurt, so I had to stop with it. Because walking in circles through a room isn't that good enough, and I don't think it's that. When you're doing that for months every day for 3 hours, then yeah, that's not good for your legs, I think. But I also started to purge every meal after I was starting to eat. So every time when I was eating, I started to purge. And I also was obsessed with that. But one day I started to see that my teeth were hurted because of that. So I've decided to stop with that too. But I also was very obsessed with and being scared to gain weight. I was almost every day and every hour I was body checking myself to see if I was becoming fatter. But every day I thought like I had become fatter even when it wasn't that. So every evening I got panic attacks because I thought I was becoming fatter. And yeah, that was my biggest fear actually. So that was, yeah. So that was my obsession. And every time when I have eaten, then I also got panic attacks because that was the thing that would make me fatter. Yeah, and people on Instagram saw maybe a very beautiful girl, and it saw my pictures maybe look like I was having fun in my life, but in fact my life was a total disaster. It felt like I wasn't living a healthy life, but I was living my life for my eating disorder. I actually didn't want to live anymore. The only thing I wanted to live was to become skinnier. And yeah, there was also a time my Instagram account felt like it was in my way because I had to stop walking to make pictures. And the only thing I wanted was walking, and it felt like, yeah, I sometimes had to make pictures for my Instagram too, and it felt like it was taking my time away, and because in that time I also could walk to burn calories. But yeah, I didn't want to live. The only thing I wanted to live for was becoming skinnier, and that's where I was living for. Yeah, one time I even wasn't scared to go to die because of my eating disorder, because I think it was all worth it. I think it was worth to die because of an eating disorder, because I was living for it and I didn't even know where I could eat for. I had nothing to eat for, so eating also felt like worthless. There was nothing to eat for. The only thing I could feel proud about myself was by stopping eating, and yeah, that was the only thing how I could feel proud of myself and where I was living for. Now these days I stopped eating disorder therapy because it only made my eating disorder feel worse. So I totally stopped with those kind of therapy, but now I follow schema therapy, which is going about trauma in your life, and with that it's going a lot better. Yeah, and nowadays I still suffer from my eating disorder and I'm still not healthy. I'm still suffering and I'm still scared of eating actually, but it's actually going a lot better, and that's also why I think it's time to make this video. I also have a job now and I have my own horse, and I want to focus on my horse now. I want to live for my horse, not for my eating disorder. And I want to focus on my horse, and that's where I'm eating for now. And that's why I think it's time to make this video now. So yeah, I'm still suffering, but it's going much better now, and it's still not silent in my head. Well, okay, that was my eating disorder story. I think maybe I'm going to make more videos about it because it's a very complicated and long story. But I hope you think it was interesting and I hope you learned something about it. But yeah, the most important thing I want to make clear is that an eating disorder is not in your body but is inside your head. So I hope you learned about it, so bye!